Everyone, and welcome to a new episode of He's Not Wrong, and I'm your host, Chad D. We have a fun episode today, but before we get into it, I really want to remind everyone that we are now on Substack, so please, if you are listening and you have a Substack, go subscribe to the Substack account for He's Not Wrong. We are posting a lot of writing on there to give context and background to episodes, to give information that we might not be able to give in the amount of time that we are allotted for each episode. So Substack is coming in clutch with being able to really expand our digital footprint. I'm writing about Alabama Power, so if you know what I'm talking about, if you see my TikToks, there's a lot that I am doing with regards to that situation on Substack as well. Please, please, please subscribe to Substack. Subscribe to this podcast on whatever app you're listening to so you will be notified when new episodes drop. And also, please leave a review. Rate this podcast. It helps more than you know in the algorithm and getting pushed out to new listeners. Ratings and reviews help us out tremendously. It's like the most impactful thing that you can do to help He's Not Wrong. So please pause this, go leave us a review, rate us, do whatever you need to do on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And like I said, we have a very special episode for you today. Former United States Senator and gubernatorial candidate Doug Jones joins the podcast. This episode has been a long time coming, and I am grateful to finally be able to share it with all of you. So last summer, Mallory Hagan and I talked about the state of the Democratic Party in Alabama and how if we want a candidate who can truly put up a fight against Tommy Tuberville, Doug Jones would need to enter the race. A few months later, Senator Jones announced his campaign for governor here in Alabama, and that was step one in putting an end to Tommy Tuberville's time in elected office. Step two is spreading the word and building momentum as we head into the primary in May. Doug Jones represents our best chance for Democrats to win the governor's race in Alabama, and we need to do everything in our power to support him. I was given 30 minutes for my conversation with Senator Jones, and we covered a lot in that short amount of time, from healthcare and affordability to the importance of a strong top of ticket so down-ballot Democrats have the support and energy needed to compete against the Republican establishment in Alabama. Doug's message is strong, but it's quite simple. And it's, we are all in this together, and meaningful change will only come if we come together as a state. Personally, I have not felt this hopeful since 2018, which I talk about in this episode. And trust me, Senator Jones was quick to remind me that much of the energy that we felt in 2018 stemmed from his special election victory to the United States Senate in 2017. He was counted out, few believed that he could win, and the odds were said to be stacked against him, and yet he prevailed. That momentum carried into 2018, the last time voters in Alabama had real Democratic options on the ballot. And now here we are in 2026, organized, energized, and as hopeful as ever. And I believe that we can win this, and I hope that you feel that way too. And if you don't, I hope that you will have a change of heart and mind and energy by the end of our conversation. So without any further ado, I give you my conversation with former United States Senator and Alabama gubernatorial candidate, Doug Jones. Former Senator Doug Jones, thank you so much for joining us on He's Not Wrong today. This is a pretty big day for the podcast. I had originally the first question to ask you was, how's the campaign going right now? But I've been reading a lot of articles today about your massive fundraising numbers for your first month of campaigning in December. So how's that going for you?
You know, look, we're really excited about how things have been going. There is such an incredible enthusiasm out for change in Alabama and for our candidacy. What's really interesting about the fundraising, I think, for folks to understand is we really haven't made an effort at fundraising yet. I haven't been on the phone making phone calls, lining up donors. We haven't done any fundraising events yet. This has been pretty organic. This was from our kickoff and the videos that we've done, a couple of fundraising emails that we sent out, and a couple of text messages we sent out. But this is really an organic movement here right now. And that's kind of what we wanted to show folks. Now, we got 7,000 donors, over 4,000 of which have come from Alabama. And that's record numbers. Forget the dollar signs. The dollar signs we're really happy with, but the number of people that are engaged is truly extraordinary. And we're very thankful for that.
Yeah, I had the privilege of attending a few of your events, one of them being your kickoff event, and the momentum was clearly on your side that evening and since your kickoff. But before we dive deeper into your campaign, I want to talk briefly about how you got to this moment, because you were born and raised in Alabama, so you know this state better than most. So I'm curious how your upbringing prepared you for this moment, but more specifically, I'm wondering how it shaped your sense of justice and how that's guided your career.
Well, that's a long story because I'm a kid of the Jim Crow era.
Yeah.
Growing up in kind of a segregated South as an early kid in early schooling. And all of that, I think, forms you to watch the evolution of America, to watch the evolution of Alabama from a Jim Crow state to one that truly tries to be inclusive on many occasions, but not doing as good a job as we should. But
Yeah.
at least under the law, have been so many changes for the better in Alabama over the years. And I think that, had a lot of good mentors growing up. My parents, of course, were just incredible mentors, but school officials and my first boss, Senator Howell Heflin, former senator from Alabama, who really tried to be a U.S. senator for all people. And then I had the fortunate opportunity to be the U.S. attorney for the Northern District of Alabama, which, for those that don't know, we've got three federal districts in Alabama: the Northern, Middle, and Southern. And the Northern is really about half of the state. It's the 31 most northern counties in the state. And you have to really be a public servant for everybody in that role. And that's what we did. And fortunately, we were able to do the things like the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing case, the Eric Robert Rudolph bombing in Birmingham, that was the bombing of the women's clinic here in Birmingham that killed a police officer. But we did a lot of programs to try to help kids, try to get guns off the street. And those really shape not only your sense of justice, but your sense of fairness and equality for everybody that you're trying to serve.
There's an interesting debate going on right now in really niche circles on social media. And so follow me for a minute, because there are some people that don't believe that Alabama is progressive enough in our Democratic candidates. But then there are people like myself that I believe that we have to prove that Alabama is capable of electing a Democrat first. And then maybe down the road we can talk getting a little more progressive in our ideals and in our policies. So first off, I want your thoughts on that before I continue into the next question. What your response is to those people that believe that.
Well, look, Democrats are a big tent, and there are folks that are more progressive than others. But our goals are basically the same, and that's good education, that's equality for everyone, that's giving everybody an equal opportunity, treating people with dignity and respect, keeping our streets safe, keeping our schools good. Those are the things that bind us. Those are the things that we have in common. And what we don't need is what I call checklist Democrats, that unless you check every box, whether it's progressive or moderate or whatever it may be, that you don't quite fit the bill. I don't buy into that. I think we have much more in common than divide us. And I think that's true of the state of Alabama. But every community is a little bit different. Every state is a little bit different from each other. And you grow up and you do things. But at the end of the day, I think our ultimate objectives are very, very close to the same thing in terms of how we want to treat people. And as I've said in my kickoff, how we want to, have an Alabama that is got a crowded table, that there's room by the fire for everyone. And that's, I think, what most people believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there are a lot of Democrats that are up and down the ballot that deserve support. And it takes having a strong top of ticket in order for the energy to trickle down to them. This is my belief, but candidates who have barely been able to raise $7,000 over 8 months, they don't have the energy or momentum to pass on to candidates up and down the ballot. So can you speak a little bit about this, about why it's important to have a strong top of ticket for Democrats all over the state of Alabama?
Well, look, so goes the top of the ticket, so goes generally the rest of the ticket. I mean, that doesn't mean that everybody wins, but folks, look at the top of the ticket and they see that's really going to be the guiding light, I think, that people look to see whether or not a slate of candidates, a team of candidates, are for them. And again, everybody's got to have their own race. The governor's race is different than the treasurer's race or the auditor's race. But overall, you've got the very similar themes in a lot of things. Yeah. So what we tried to do, and I'm just being very honest about this, I looked early on this summer, and as I started looking around at what was going on, I didn't see the enough party building, enough candidate building, enough momentum going on out there. And there'd been people from across the state that have been urging us to run. Everywhere Louise and I go, my wife Louise, if we go, people are asking, so will you run for this? Will you run for that? I've always told them that, look, one person can't do this alone, no matter how strong they might be. You've got to build a team. You've got to build an effort from top to bottom. And that's what we've been trying to do. When you were talking about fundraising a minute ago, one of the reasons that we haven't engaged in real hard fundraising just yet is because I've been spent all of my time in December trying to recruit other candidates to build that momentum, to build good quality candidates that we can offer people choice. Because at the end of the day, democracy is about choices. Elections should be about choices. And I quite frankly don't think people of Alabama in their November elections have had the choices in the past. We're going to field a strong set of candidates and give people choices this upcoming November.
Yeah, and that's so important because I've said it a lot of times on this podcast so far that 2026 feels a lot like what 2018 was, but there's a little bit of more grit to it. Like we've seen what Trump is capable of in 2018. Maybe we were a little bit naive, and I worked on Mallory Hagan's congressional campaign. And so there was a level of hope that we had then, but it seems like it's back this year with you at the top. Hopefully we'll be at the top of the ticket after the primaries, and then with all the candidates who are qualifying right now. And so,
yeah, can I build on that just real
sure.
quick, if you don't mind? Because I agree with you in terms of excitement, enthusiasm. There is one big difference, though, I think, because in 2018, we kind of shocked everybody in winning that Senate election in 2017, up till the right at the very end. Pundits and everyone else said Doug Jones didn't have a shot. And once we won that race, there were so many people that wanted to get involved that had never been involved before. And remember, qualifying closed in that year, very similar to the way it is now, like in the end of January. So there was a lot of enthusiasm and people jumping in the race, various races, some statewide, some legislative. We still didn't field candidates up and down the ticket that had experience, that had the real knowledge base of politics to run, but they were excited. They wanted to get engaged. And so this time we've been focusing on some candidates who I think bring a lot to the table. Some first-time statewide candidates, but a lot of folks that are going to be at the top of the ticket. And I say the top, meaning the constitutional officers, governor, lieutenant governor, others that are going to field from the Democrats. They have faced voters before, whether it's in a House district or whether it is a statewide district. They have faced voters before. So we bring, I think, a little bit more seasoned ticket than what we had in 2018. The enthusiasm is there, if not greater, but we've got the experience level and I think a desire to work more as a team this time. And that's what's going to make the difference in this election.
Oh, I completely agree. And one of those individuals who's running for Lieutenant Governor, Phil Ensler, came out on the podcast the day after he announced his candidacy. And we talked a bit about healthcare and issues that people are facing in Alabama. And it's no secret right now that there are people whose healthcare premiums are doubling, tripling, and even in some cases, it's been reported that they're quadrupling. And so we heard from Phil about the importance of expanding Medicaid in the state. And then yesterday I had another guest on the podcast, Corbin Trent, and he was talking about how if you want to truly lower healthcare costs for people, we need to invest in creating more doctors, nurses, hospitals, like building the actual healthcare infrastructure, one that isn't for profit, that benefits people first. So I say that because there's a lot of ideas that are floating around on how to tackle this issue. But as governor, what would your plan to be to lower those healthcare costs and expand access to healthcare for all Alabamians, not just the lucky few who have the money and resources and the ability to get to a hospital if needed?
Yeah, look, first of all, I think you do have to try to figure out the best way to expand Medicaid. I think the governor can do that and expand eligibility with a stroke of a pen.
Yeah.
Alabama is a poor state. Right now, we've got close to 1 million people on Medicaid. There are so many people that fall in that coverage gap, though, and it's an investment. When you invest in people's health care, you invest not only in individuals, you're investing in a local economy. You're investing in that local hospital because Medicaid in a state like Alabama is the driver of a healthcare system. And those are federal dollars and from our taxpayers that are going to other states. And we need to keep those dollars at home so that we can keep those rural hospitals open so that we can attract doctors. It is going to be hard to turn that ship around right now. We've seen how this legislature and the lack of leadership on this issue with state government officials has seemed entrenched. But I think we can change that with just having a champion in the governor's office to making that a top priority. It has not been that way since the ACA was adopted some 15 years ago. Yeah. It has just not been that way. I think being that champion is a big thing because you've got the hospital association, you've got doctors who know the importance, and it's not just doctors, it's nurses. Yep. And we need to be looking at how we can maybe tweak how healthcare is delivered in some of these rural areas. For instance, I think pharmacists could do more than they are doing right now to help deliver some healthcare needs that doesn't necessarily require a doctor. I think nurse practitioners could be used a lot more. Those have got to be a top-down approach from the governor's office to try to make sure we make those changes and trying to literally go with the legislators to talk to them and get into their districts and have their people get. All of this can bubble up, but from people, if they will get out there and vote on these issues and not just get distracted on party politics or whatever, but vote personal, vote on the things that they care about the most.
I appreciate you addressing all of that because I think a lot of people right now, in years past, it might have just been a political talking point, an ideology, a thought process when it comes to healthcare. But right now, people are feeling it and they're viewing it as a moral issue and affordability as a moral issue. And these are the types of conversations that we need to be having over the next year so we can understand how we can morally and ethically make life more affordable so people can live and enjoy life.
And it's an economic issue too. It's an economic issue for those communities. I mean, those rural hospitals are the lifebloods of these local communities. And they create jobs not only at the hospitals, but in the small businesses that support folks around those hospitals. So, Alabama is going to have a tough couple of years thanks to, the federal government pulling back on things, thanks to the votes of our senators and members of Congress right now, except for Terry Sewell and Shamari Figures, that are going to take money away from Alabama. There's going to be some real serious issues being faced in Alabama, and we need to be driving the economies of these rural areas, not trying to shut hospitals down that really hurt those economies.
Yeah, absolutely. And, again, I went to the town hall that you had in Florence, Alabama, or the town hall that you were part of in Florence, Alabama earlier in December. And you talked a bit about the youth and education, and something that's bothered me personally tremendously over the past year or two is the glorification of the education voucher program in Alabama. And for the audience, what I'm referring to is the fact that if you live in a failing school district, you have the ability to essentially claim a voucher. That's your tax dollars to send your children to a private school. And I can't help but think that that's a result of a years long effort to undermine the education system by Republicans. And it's not only in this state, but in states like this across the country who have voucher programs. And so with where we're at, how do we come together to support students in this state to rebuild a system that's quite literally taking money out of our education system and lowering the quality of education that students are getting across the state?
Well, first of all, I think we need to educate people more. And I think the governor's office and I think some of the other elected officials could really educate people about what this is. Certainly people would like the opportunity to get some kind of voucher or tax credit to send their child to a better school. That's a no-brainer, okay, if you just ask that question. But here's the problem. These are taxpayer dollars that are being used to fund these schools. There's no accountability for those schools. There's no way to measure success. They're not going to be, in the same category as all of the public schools with the testing that we've got now, which is not bad, actually, to try to gauge progress of school systems, progress of our students, both in reading, math, science, you name it. These schools don't really have that kind of accountability, but yet we're giving taxpayer dollars to fund them. So we got to start looking at that. The other thing, this is going to cost the Education Trust Fund a whole boatload of money coming, because right now, those vouchers, there's an income limit, there's a cap on those. Those are going to go away in the next year or so. And that so that anybody, regardless of their income, regardless of the fact that they may have been sending their kids to private schools for 10, 15 years, are now going to get taxpayer money, regardless of how much money that they make. There is an element of total unfairness about that. And it is an attack on the public school system that I think we have to look at. And we've got to look at those income gaps. We've got to look at some form of accountability, because all of these nice figures that we see the education department and the state officials touting these days, those come from public schools. You're not going to be able to measure that same, have that same metrics with private schools. And so I really, if taxpayer dollars are going to be used, and if people want to keep that, that's great. We got to have some accounting. We got to have some audits. We got to know how those dollars are being spent and what is the outcome.
A child's education it's no secret that it's an indicator to their future and the success that they can attain as an individual. But it's also the state of education in Alabama, I feel, is an indicator to the level of, as you said, inequality that exists within our state. So what are things that you can do as governor that can move the needle fairly quickly to ensure success for every child and to at least remove some of that inequality in terms of access and the quality of education that they receive?
Sure. Well, you got to work with the Department of Education a good bit, and you need to look at those programs that have been successful. For instance, I was listening to a program yesterday by the Public Affairs Research Council of Alabama, and we have, in fact, improved a fair amount of reading and literacy for third graders over the last few years. But we've done that in part because we've had federal dollars, mainly because of COVID money and some things, and a good economy over the years that brought in extra money to the Education Trust Fund, that they were able to create certain programs that had teaching assistants and coaches in every classroom in certain school systems, especially the poorer systems. That has worked. That has worked for these third graders. It has helped those schools. It has helped those kids. But it's not going to be sustainable with any kind of downturn in the economy and the fact that COVID money and federal dollars are drying up and they're not going to be available. So how can you pay? You don't want to just throw money at a problem. But what you do have out there now is that we do have some metrics with programs that work. And if we've seen where those programs can work, but it might cost a little extra money, we need to find the dollars to put them there. Because those, as I said before, that is not just money being spent on schools. Those are investments in our future.
Yeah. Where does a lottery fit into bridging that gap and finding those dollars?
It's a good question. A lottery could help there. Look, you saw at our kickoff and everything I've done, I am a strong proponent of a lottery. We stick out like a sore thumb among southern states without a lottery. We should have had it a long time ago, and we would have had it, I believe, if we'd have had some ballot initiative where citizens could put constitutional amendments and other legislation on the ballot and not have to worry about whether or not everybody in Montgomery wants to have their fingers in the pie. I think it's going to be interesting to see where folks would like money to be spent, money that would come from a lottery. Years ago, we had a lottery proposal that was tied to education and scholarships. But right now, do you need scholarships going to college when you could also have scholarships going to two-year colleges or technical colleges or technical schools to give people the skills for the upcoming century? That's one possibility. Healthcare is another possibility. If we're getting $300 million or so a year, we need to spend the money wisely. We need to figure out the best way to do that. Hell, I've even heard of one proposal, which quite frankly, I think would be fairly popular too, is that for people under a certain level of income, take the profits from a lottery and just give them that money back and say, here, this is your money to go. Because remember, that money would then go back into the economy somehow, some way, whether it is those person's health care, whether they're buying food, whether they're buying clothing. So I think there's a lot of ways to do this. I think it needs a little bit of study. But the main thing is we got to get over the hump of getting the legislature to quit trying to figure out how and who all needs to share in this, that, and the other, and just pass a lottery. If they would do that in this session and put it on the ballot next November, I would all but guarantee that it would pass. Yeah. But it's got to be on the ballot next November when people come to vote, not spend and waste a whole lot of taxpayer money trying to have a special election in August or September. That's ridiculous. That's absurd. Yeah. Put it on in November when people are coming in to vote, and you got the largest number of people that are going to be there. You get the largest representation of people that want it or don't want it.
Yeah, I agree. It needs to be on the ballot in November. The interesting thing that I find when looking at ballot initiatives is the fact that with Alabama being one of the only few states that have straight ticket voting, it's always like a 60-30 split usually. But then when you flip it over, you look at the ballot initiatives, you see how competitive that state actually is on things that people care about. And I know this is one that probably wouldn't be as competitive. It would probably pass if they allowed us to vote on that.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about it. And by the way, we need to get rid of the damn straight ticket voting as well. That is a rigged system that is just designed to keep the people in Montgomery in power. It diminishes your voting choices. It does so much. And I'll give you a great example. This is what straight ticket voting and one party domination has done for you. Look over, y'all, everybody that's listening to this, go back and look over your news over the last 3 to 4 months. And even in the last month, how many of the special interest groups, how many down in Montgomery who are paying lobbyists down there, how many of those groups have already endorsed someone for either a state office or a legislative office, and qualifying just has started? They didn't even know who all was going to be on the ballot, and still don't know who all is going to be on the ballot, but yet they endorse people, which is designed to intimidate other people from running. And that's not democratic. That's rigging the election. And that needs to change as well.
We have a lot of young people who listen to this podcast. And I know when we were in Florence, you talked a lot about the importance of having the youth vote, getting involved in this election cycle. And so to those people listening, to the younger audience, what is the message that you want to leave with them on the importance of getting involved in a campaign like yours at a moment in time like this?
Look, this is one of the most unique opportunities that Alabama has had in a couple of 3 generations. We have gone from a one-party state as a Democrat to a one-party state as Republican, and we've not really progressed the way we should have under either. And and the reason is because all the power is just concentrated continually in Montgomery among the special interest groups. You're going to be here. If you want a stake in the future, you need to get engaged in this election. This election is going to be the most important. It is going to set the tone going into 2030, which will have another election, which will then be the legislature that does the redistricting, and you have to have a voice. And I would say get involved. Touch base with our campaign. Go to DougJones.com. Sign up. Make your voice heard. We want to not just engage you. We want to listen. We want to see what you're concerned about. We want you to help us develop the programs that we can control AI in this state in a way that it will benefit everybody's future and not cost you your future. That's what the kind of campaign we want to run, to engage people. We want young folks to be a part of this campaign and a part of the future, not just a vote at some point, or just not engaging at all. We want to hear from them.
Are you still planning on going to those third spaces that I told you about back in Florence to meet?
Yeah, we're going to, once we can get this thing rolling, we'll try to get, and that's, again, that's the other thing. Look, I'm a lawyer. I've got things going on. I've got this campaign going on. I don't know those areas. I don't know those spaces, but I guarantee you, if we can get some young folks engaged in this campaign, we want to be involved. I don't want to just go around to the churches on Sunday morning and try to get folks there to vote. I want to go where folks are. And there's a lot of folks that are in different spaces that I don't normally frequent because of just who I am. And that is no knock on these spaces. It's just, I'm just different. But we'll go, we'll listen. And I want to invite those younger folks to the gatherings that we're going to have as well. They should also come to where we're going to be, because we're going to start engaging in every county and every part of this state. And sometimes I'll be there. Sometimes Phil Ensler will be there. Sometimes other people on the ticket. But sometimes it's just going to be folks in the community. But it's going to be a place to talk. And if they want to make a difference, that's where the rubber meets the road. Yep. Talk to people in their communities and go where they are. So it's a little bit of a two-way street. I would encourage, I'll come to you, but you come to wherever folks are being gathered in your local area.
Well, Senator Doug Jones, listen, my boyfriend and I, we just went to the first drag show that we found out about at the Pink Lantern in downtown Birmingham, the new coffee shop that just opened. It's a coffee shop during the day. It's a fun little bar at night. So we'll extend a formal invitation for you to come with us to that drag performance. A lot of Broadway show tunes were sung, and I think there's a lot of people there that would be really happy to see you make your way into that space. But we'll reach out to you.
I love Broadway show tunes. We'll figure out how to get into all of these spaces. Do it. Look, I'm going to tell you, this is going to be a campaign for everyone. Like I said, you heard it from this. My vision for Alabama is a house with a crowded table, where there's place by the fire for everyone. And that's what I think has been missing from Alabama in the past. And so we're looking to build that house for the future, with that crowded table for the future, where everyone's welcome.
Final question for you. What are you not wrong about?
I don't think I'm wrong about the fact that I think Alabama's looking for a change. Yep. I really believe that I am not wrong when I say that people are tired of the chaos. They're tired of public officials who are divisive, who put down other people, that has this us versus them, sporting event mentality. I really think people understand that their lives are not a game. Alabama's not a stadium, that this is something that we need to be in it for everyone. And I think they're going to vote that way this year.
I agree. I feel it. I see it. I can truthfully say you're not wrong about that, former United States Senator Doug Jones. Thank you so much for your time and taking this opportunity to speak with my audience. We're really excited for what the future holds, and anything that we can do to help your campaign, we are here for you.
Hey, thanks for having me. Let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely.